Hey, if we haven't met yet, welcome. This channel is for the moments when you're tired of performing and ready to actually live like the woman you keep promising yourself you'll become. There was a version of me who used to rehearse text messages before sending them, not love letters, not job applications, just regular text. Can I reschedule? I type it, delete it, type it again, add a smiley face so it didn't sound rude, delete the smiley face because it felt try hard, and then sit there for 10 minutes deciding whether one sentence made me a bad friend. If that sounds exhausting, it was. And if it sounds familiar, I need you to stay for this one. So, today's topic is one I lived through long before I ever talked about it publicly. The need to be liked by everyone and what it actually costs you to keep chasing that. I'm going to walk you through three things. First, where this need really comes from, because it's my personality flaw. It's a pattern that was taught to you. Second, a moment that finally cracked the pattern for me and what I learned from watching it happen. And third, the specific practical shifts you can start today if you're ready to stop managing everyone's opinion of you instead managing your own life instead. Let's start with the obvious question. Why do so many of us, and I really do think this hits women especially hard, spend so much energy trying to be liked? It's not vanity, it's not insecurity, even though it gets mistaken for that all the time. It's survival wiring that got installed a long time before you had any say in it. Think about how girls are raised, generally speaking. Be sweet, be helpful, don't make a scene, smile, even when you don't feel like smiling, because someone might ask, "What's wrong?" And you are the problem. Share your toys, share your time, share your opinions, only if they are easy to digest. Somewhere in there, a message gets installed. Your value is tied to how comfortable you make other people feel. And that message doesn't stay in childhood, it graduates with you. It shows up in your first job when you say yes to extra work you don't have time for because you don't want to seem difficult. It shows up in friendships where you laugh at things that aren't funny because disagreeing feels like a small betrayal. It shows up in relationships where you swallow an opinion because peace feels safer than honesty. Here's the part that took me years to understand. Being liked and being known are not the same thing. What did I say? Being liked and being known are not the same thing. You can be liked by a room full of people who have no idea who you actually are because you haven't spent the whole time managing their impression of you instead of just being there. I want you to think of a scale for a second. On one end, authentic and occasionally disliked. On the other end, agreeable and quietly invisible. A lot of us have been living so far on the agreeable end that we don't even remember what our actual voice sounds like in a room. We just know the sound of consensus. We know how to nod along We know how to make ourselves smaller so the temperature in the room stays comfortable. And I want to be really clear about something because this is where people misunderstand this topic. This isn't about becoming combative, it's not about disagreeing for the sake of it or treating kindness like it's weakness. Kindness is not the enemy here. The enemy is using kindness as a disguise for fear. There's difference between I'm being kind because I want to be and I'm being agreeable because I'm terrified of what happens if I'm not. That second one isn't kindness. That's self erasure wearing kindness as a costume. I want to tell you about a specific moment because I think it explains this better than any explanation could. A while back, I was in a group setting. The specifics don't matter as much as the shape of what happened. Where someone made a decision that affected me without asking me. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a betrayal in the big movie sense. It was just one of those quiet moments where you are expected to go along with something because going along is easier than speaking up. And the old version of me knew exactly what to do in that moment. Smile, say, no worries, that's totally fine. Internally calculate how annoyed I actually was. Then divide it by 10 because that felt like a socially acceptable amount of annoyed to actually express. But this time, something in me paused. I remember physically feeling the words, it's fine, forming in my mouth, ready to be released like they had been released 100 times before. And for the first time, I just didn't say them. I said something closer to the truth instead. Something like, actually, I wish I'd been asked before this was decided. It wasn't aggressive, it wasn't dramatic, it was just true. And here's what I expected to happen. I expected the room to get cold. I expected someone to think I was being difficult. I expected somewhere deep down to be quietly recategorized from easy to a lot. You know what actually happened? Nothing collapsed. The conversation continued. People adjusted. One person even said, "You're right. That wasn't fair. Let's fix it." The sky did not fall. Nobody filed a formal complaint against my personality. But more than that, afterward, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time after a conversation like that. I didn't even feel that low horn of resentment that usually followed me home after swallowing my opinion. I felt like I had actually been present in my own life for once instead of narrating it from a safe distance. That was the moment I started understanding something that I think is one of the most freeing truths a woman can learn. The version of you that everyone likes and the version of you that actually exists are sometimes two completely different people. And every time you choose the liked version over the real one, you're not gaining safety, you're gaining distance from your own life. I'm not telling you the story because it was some massive turning point movie scene. I'm telling you because it was small, it was almost forgettable, and that's exactly the point. These moments are happening to you right now in small, forgettable ways, multiple times a week. The question isn't whether you will get a traumatic chance to practice this. The question is whether you will notice the tiny ones you're getting today. Let's talk numbers for a second, not literal numbers, but the actual cost of this pattern, because I don't think we add it up often enough. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you're spending a small amount of yourself, not money, energy, identity, trust in your own voice. Multiply that by every week, every year, every relationship where you've been doing this since you were a teenager. And you start to understand why so many women hit their 30s or 40s and suddenly feel a quiet, disorienting question rise up. Who actually am I? Underneath all the accommodating, the question isn't a midlife crisis, it's an invoice. It's your own identity finally asking you to settle the bill for all those years of being easy. And here is the cruel irony in all of this: the people who actually love you, the ones whose opinion you were so afraid of losing, they very rarely leave because you became more honest. They leave eventually because you became a stranger to yourself. And strangers are hard to stay close to, even when you love them. Meanwhile, the people who only liked the agreeable, smaller version of you, losing their approval was never actually a loss. It just felt like one, because approval and love get tangled up in our heads until we can't tell them apart anymore. Meanwhile, the people who only like the agreeable, smaller version of you, losing their approval was never actually a loss. It just felt like one, because approval and love get tangled up in our heads until we can't tell them apart anymore. I want you to sit with that distinction for a second, because it matters. Approval is conditional. It only sticks around as long as you keep performing it. Love, the real kind, doesn't need a performance. It survives your honesty. If something only survives your silence, it was never really yours to lose in the first place. Okay, so how do you actually start doing this differently? Because awareness alone doesn't change behavior. I wish it did. That would make all of this a lot easier. Here's the practice I want to leave you with. It's small on purpose because small is sustainable, and sustainable is what actually works. Step one: catch the phrase before it leaves your mouth. The next time you feel it's fine or no worries rising up automatically, pause for 1 second before saying it. Just 1 second. Ask yourself, is this actually fine? Or am I just trying to keep the room comfortable? You don't have to change your answer everything. Just start noticing when you're choosing the easy sentence over the true one. Secondly, practice the smallest possible honest sentence. You don't need a speech. You don't need to deliver some big declaration of independence from people pleasing. You just need one slightly more honest sentence that you would have said before. Instead of it's totally fine, try, I would have liked a head up, but okay. Instead of laughing along with something that didn't actually land for you, try just not laughing. Let silence be allowed to exist in a room without you rushing to fill it with agreement. Thirdly, let the discomfort happen without fixing it immediately. This is the one people skip and is the most important one. After you say the honest thing, your nervous system is going to scream at you to fix it, to over explain, to soften it into oblivion, to apologize for having a preference. Resist that. Let the slightly uncomfortable silence sit there for a second. Discomfort is not the same thing as danger. It just feels that way because you spent years avoiding it. Then, fourthly, track how you feel afterward, not just how they reacted. We are so trained to scan other people's faces for approval after we say something honest. I want you to redirect that scanning inward instead. Don't just ask, did they take that okay? Ask, do I feel more like myself right now? That second question is the one that actually matters long term. Do this enough times, in enough small low stakes moments. A text message, a group chat, a dinner reservation you didn't actually want to agree to, and something starts to shift. The fear doesn't disappear overnight, but it gets quieter, and your own voice gets louder in comparison. Eventually, you realize you've not spent so long rehearsing other people's comforts that you forgot you were allowed to write your own script. Here's what I want you to remember walking away from this video. Being likable was never the goal, it was just the easiest costume to wear while you figured out who you actually were underneath it. And costumes are fine for a while, but eventually you have to take them off if you want anyone, including yourself, to actually meet the real you. You don't need a fan club. You need a life that feels like yours when nobody else is watching, clapping, or deciding whether to approve of it. The version of you that is a little less agreeable and a little more honest, she's not difficult. She's just finally arrived. If this video found you at the right moment, I want to hear from you. In the comments, tell me about one moment, big or small, where you people pleased and walked away wishing you'd said the truer thing instead. Don't worry about making it sound impressive. The small, almost embarrassing examples are usually the most relatable ones, and I genuinely read every comment. If you want more of this kind of honest conversation, subscribe and turn on notifications because next week I'm going to be talking about something that goes hand in hand with this one: how to set a boundary without drowning in guilt for the rest of the day.